See if it's good. All right. We are now live. What's up, buddy fighters? It's your host, Justin G here, and today I have along two special guests, Alex Lewis.
Hey
His
guys,
channel is Buddy Fight News Corner, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Alex?
Buddy Fight News Corner.
Oh.
That's me.
All right. And then Zachary Grain, Zach Zag.
That's right.
And then our admin and mods, Matt, Jake, and Jason.
Yo.
So today we're going to be talking about tech building. Yeah, everybody can say hi. Say your hellos.
What's going on, everybody?
Hello.
All right. So we're going to talk about deck building today with you guys. It's very important because I feel like our community struggles with it. We see more posts about deck lists than almost like trades and sales at this point. So we want to give you like a little rough sketch, like of fundamentals on like how we deck build, and then like you can take any advice that you want away from this. So Jason, you want to start us off? So we can
Master
get
Deck.
like, your 20th.
Master Net Decker Jason.
Yes, I will tell you. I go to Google and I type in honestly, every deck starts with a win condition, right? So you find a card you like, you want to win with it. What do you do next? First thing I do is I go to the wiki and I look for all the support. The nice thing about the wiki is that, it links all the different support cards for whatever you're trying to play. So I'll look at all the different support cards for that particular card before looking at different utility cards within the world. And being the kind of person I am, I like to start with a lot of 4-ofs and 2-ofs. I'm not, yes, I played Yu-Gi-Oh! I understand some people's mentalities and going to 3-ofs first. But I like to go to 4-ofs and then like work my way back and scale it back and cut it back to a point that I like, for whatever it is. And then I start looking at the different tech options, with the utility cards that the world has to offer. So that's usually what I do. But in all honesty, net decking is way faster and easier. And why reinvent the wheel when somebody else already made it better? But that's all I'll say.
So is it any specific site that you go to for the decks that you steal? I mean, that you borrow?
Well, you get a lot of great ideas on YouTube, obviously. A lot, Zach's got a great channel that has a lot of good content on it. Justin has a great channel with a lot of deck profiles on it. I mean, obviously, everybody probably has heard of Card Fight Protagonist. That guy has a lot of interesting stuff on his channel. As far as like finding lists online, like in text, most people are lazy to watch videos nowadays. So it's easier for me. Plus, I like to hear the explanations of card choices if they're provided. Like it getting a little insight as to what's worked for them and what hasn't goes a long way when trying to save time and building a deck. And I mean, like I said, if you're doing it from scratch, my process is that throw 4 of every good card in there and then scale it back until you have 50 cards or close to it,
Okay.
I don't know if that's similar to you professional deck builders, but that's what I do. And that's what works for me when I'm starting out fresh and like I don't have anybody to net deck.
Okay. So you always scale your decks back to 50 or as close to 50 as possible?
I always build with, like I said, like I take like a lot of 4-ofs and like figure out like, okay, why am I running this card? Because it's an awesome card, like I like it. And then like some cards that I don't want to see as much of, I'll go with a 2-of, or sometimes a couple 3-ofs here or there. I hate 1-ofs. I really hate 1-ofs. If you're gonna run a card, you probably want to see it. Why run one of it? Unless like it's super searchable or something, like in my opinion, or like people always call it the tech choice. I guess I did run the 1-of in the Jaeger match. In my Jaeger deck that I played in Jacksonville. However, you can search that card very easily in the deck because you can drop in the drop zone with Sturdy Dragon Strike, and you can get it back, with Reflection Moon. So it's not like I was really only running one copy, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I find that interesting that you also said that, because I really didn't start what you call my Japanese decks until Omnilords were a thing. Like I never believed in running a card at less than 3, because I always thought like if you needed less than 3 of this card, then you don't need it in the deck. So I would always put everything at 3 or 4. And then once Omnilords were a thing, I started testing like with the one ofs, and I saw that like a lot of it worked. Like with one black dragon deck I made with that ran Mukuro, because if they destroyed my item, which was always a problem with Darkness Dragon World, I could just get it back with Black Revenger. So that would fix my problem. I get back Mukuro, and I get back a size one that gives me gauge, or the Nightmare that searches for destruction. So I would just plus off of all of that. And then I didn't even have to play like both of them, or I could play Nightmare, get his ability to get back Death Shield. I think it was Death Shield. Yes. And then play Mukuro over him, and then have the Mukuro attack for like that's 5 damage. So that's interesting that you said that you did the one of, because you could search it and you can resource it back from the drop, which are important for playing. So does anybody else want to go next?
I'll go next. So for me, the main thing when I'm building a deck is like I start similar to how Jason starts. Like I find a card or strategy or engine or something that I want to play with, and then I sort of just start and I just put all the cards I think would be good with that strategy in a pile, sort them out, look at them, and I'm like, okay, what do these cards do? And then I will cut things before I even build the deck, just on merit of what does this card do? Does it kill my opponent? Does it advance my game plan? Does it make me not die? If it doesn't do one of those things, it probably gets cut before I go into testing.
Yeah.
And it's more so about like streamlining a deck so that you have the answers for what you need to answer, and making sure that your deck doesn't just clog because you're playing a bunch of just random things that are good cards but are maybe situational or don't serve a purpose. Like, for example, if you play in a wall meta and everything has 7k defense and all your monsters only have 4k attack, they're not that great. Whereas you might play some 7k power monsters instead because you need to get through a wall. And so I try to make sure that all the cards in the deck serve a purpose for whatever the deck is trying to do.
Okay, that's it's a very valid point, because that's something that Zach used to always yell at me about every time I was like, I got this cool idea that I'm gonna do, and then he'd look at all the cards and he's just like, I don't get it. How does this kill your opponent? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. The point of the game is dealing 10 damage. Doesn't matter how many cards I draw plus.
Combo is real cute, but how's your opponent gonna die?
Yeah, exactly. So they used to rip me. So that's why I've been making a lot of decks with like no shields or like 4 shields, because it's like I started to see it this way. It's like if you have counters that deal damage, you really don't need a lot of shields, because if you're out damaging your opponent, you don't need to like draw. And sometimes those shields can get in your way, because if you draw too many of them and you're not drawing your monsters, then you can't. Well, you have 0 damage output. So yeah,
I try to look at shields as sort of in I look. So I'm the predominant card game I play is Magic. So the way I look at any card that doesn't resource itself back like another card in my hand, I look at it as essentially a -1. So, so like a shield is not. It's a -1. Like, yeah, it saves me from dying. It's necessary to play them, but it you're losing hand. So I try to either play shields that mitigate that via some other resource, be it life or gauge, and then I try to make sure all the cards, like all the monsters, spells, whatever I'm playing, that I can generate more resource in terms of hand, so that I can draw into more shields and afford to play them without just running out of cards.
That makes sense. That's why Arc Dragon Shield is beautiful now. Like that's like one of my favorite shields in this meta because it's
Yeah.
like it's no like you -1 gauge to negate an attack and draw a card. It's like all you need to do is have a Thunder Empire card on the field. So that's just the weapon. So I'll just go first turn. I want to be at 4. So swing with weapon. Hit me with everything. If you do more, try to do more than 6 damage, shields and draw a card. So yeah, I can see that because I think in one of my decks now, I'm just running 4. I think in most of the decks I'm running right now, I'm only running 4 shields, and then like some other kind of counter card or gain and draw, dodge, like some other kind of resourcing where I draw or counter instead.
Bats, you only have 1 green dragon shield for art.
Oh yeah, and then in the bat stack that I'm playing right now, and I have 1 green dragon shield, 4 blue, 4 arc shield, and then like the rest is like working in bombers, and then bat stack links. Like all the like I'm not having on the shield, so I'm probably going to take out the green dragon shield. Just because what's life gain when you kill your opponent? But Jake, are there any sites or anything you use for your deck builds, or you kind of just come up with everything yourself?
So I'll look at lists that I find online. I use the Japanese hashtag thing for decks that topped in Japan. I'll use Jason's website where he posts stuff that topped regional events.
Thank you.
I use like lists people just post online. Most of the time it's like I see like an archetype or whatever, and I'll just go on area and I'll just go through area for every card in the world, and I'll just click one of each card that I think would be interesting, and then see how many cards I have at the end, and then sort of narrow that down. If I have the cards in like physical, like paper, I'll just pull out a box and just lay them all out on a table and just be like, all right, what am I trying to build? I generally tend to like if I'm building a deck, I tend to also picture the entire deck as one thing inclusive of the sideboard. So I will often build a 60 card deck and then side out the 10 cards that are situational. And then that's my sideboard. I find that functions a lot better than just being like, well, I want to play these random hate cards, but then I don't have a way to like slot them into the deck without damaging the way the deck flows or draws.
Okay.
I think that's a lot of people's challenge though with the sideboard is like you don't want to ruin the consistency and synergy of your deck. So it's like how do you how do you throw in these 4 barbed wires?
Right.
So
I
mean you take out the obvious useless cards for the matchup, but
so basically I try to have in my sideboard with my main deck, I try to have a plan of okay, so the main deck I play is Fifth Omni. So generally the spells that I play 3 Double Lost main, 2 Hiding Bombers, and 1 Drago Desperate. And so they're all good in different matchups for different reasons. And so then I play 2 more Bombers side, and then 2 more Drago Desperates, and then 1 remove. And so then I can just sort of side in the more efficient removal for what I'm playing against and side out the less efficient removal. So like for prisms, like Drago Desperate is pretty bad, and so is Hiding Bomber. So I usually board those out, and I'll board in a remove and some item destruction. And then in other matchups where, like if I'm playing against Black Dragons, I board out my double losses because Hiding Bomber does basically the same thing but gives me more options. So it's just sort of like making your deck. You don't necessarily need to just play straight out hate. You can just make your deck more efficient for what you're playing against, and that will often not ruin your consistency or how your deck functions because your costs of gauge or life or whatever are similar.
Okay. Okay, so what do you usually test against, Jake? Like you just
So the people around here, like where I live, there's very few wall decks. Almost everything is open center. There's a couple people play Executioners, some Magic World stuff, a lot of Dragon World, whether it's Sun Dragons, Thunder Empire, Fifth Omni, whatever. There's a couple of Hero World. My roommate plays Black Dragons. I have a bunch of random decks that people will play. Starjack. So there's literally no danger. I've never played against Danger World. There's very little ancient, almost no dungeon, very few legend. There's a couple of Zodiac decks, but that's about it. So it's mostly open center or sort of aggressive meta for me.
Okay. All right, I got you. Does anybody want to go next?
I'll go.
All right, Matt, kick it off.
So normally when I start a deck build, I'll be doing something in the real world, and then I'll have a sudden idea because I'll be thinking about card games, and I'll try to get a piece of paper, write down the idea I have, try to work out ratios. Then when I get home, I'll put everything out of all my cards, and I'll spread it out and look at it. And then I think of every relevant deck in the meta and every relevant road deck I may run into, or even just compare it to the local meta if it's not regional season. And I'll think of all the answers the decks have to the current meta. Then after I go through that and I sort out my monster lineup, I then go to spell lineup, weapon lineup, and impact, because I find if you go through that, it's a nice grouping of ratios where you can figure out your monster lineup first, figure out how many spells you need to either protect your monsters or shield if you're playing Dragon World. Then I see how many weapons I need to play based on consistency of draw spells or excel cards. And then I go to the impacts, which is the last thing. Normally, depending if I play impacts or not. What I like to do is I like to put the deck over 50 at first to see because I like to put a lot of cards in that I like, not really tech cards, but like 2 or 3 of that I like to play in order to just kind of see if the idea works at first. And normally I'll leave it around 50 to 53 because I do think a deck can play more than 50 cards. One of my favorite things to do is, play it in tournament and then find out what doesn't work that day. And then right after tournament, I'll sit down and say, okay, what didn't work? How can I make this better? How can I take the 1 or 2 cards that didn't put in the work I wanted them to do, and then I put them in?
Okay.
And also, a big thing that I always do is I always make sure I count gauge cards, like how many high power, how many gauge cards, 3 gauge, 2 gauge, 1 gauge, count how many cards cost gauge and how many cards give me gauge so I can work out a balanced ratio. So you need gauge to play the game, so I don't want to be spending all my gauge one turn and then have none to play the next turn.
All right. So you primarily play Star Dragon World, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if you were going to build, say, something that you played, Style of Justice for this format, like how would you go about it?
Okay, so this is an idea that I had a long time ago. I initially start with the idea of Style of Justice. Style of Justice is nullify the deck. So I'd say, all right, let's try to play 4 of the weapon. Then I'd say, okay, what cards get me to 2 Dragon Arms? All right, let's put Starjack boost up a little bit. Let's add a couple more Dragon Arms in. Let's play the nullifier spell, so we have like a whole field can be nullified. A spell can be nullified, the weapon can be nullified. Start with the idea. Then I go through the ratios. I check my Dragon Arms lineup, and then I kind of work around it and try to do the best I can. Then I test it, see what doesn't work, and make edits.
Okay.
The idea
so, if you were playing Style of Justice now, of course, you run what, 4 Style of Justice, correct?
Actually, currently I play 2 of it because I find that the quadruple attack Dragon Force is still as relevant as the other Style of Justice. Then I'll side 1 of each. Both have advantages, disadvantages in some matchups. Also, Star Dragoner's Beat allows me to search the weapon, so I don't need a max of 4.
Kind of like what Jake said, and you just like to cover all your bases and then decide for like an unfavorable match or something that you don't want to be a dead draw.
Yeah, exactly. And then for sideboard purposes, I'll think of, all right, what's my absolute worst 2 or 3 matchups, and I'll make sure I have my sideboard accordingly laid out for them. Like back when Shades were really relevant, Jackknife had a big problem with that. So we put in Dimensions and Antimatter Clouds, and we got there.
Okay. So is that about all for you? It's
That's
pretty
just about it.
okay. Somebody else want to go next?
I can let Alex go if you want to go first, Alex.
Doesn't matter to me.
Well, I guess I'll just talk then. So deck building, I guess it's kind of become a little bit standardized because a lot of the times we see a few types of decks. Like you might have your open center, you might have your size 3 style deck, where you're like control or hard rush decks. And I feel like each of those decks themselves are kind of specifically geared a little bit differently than everything else. So like a size 3 deck obviously might not run high monster count like every other deck, right? So maybe instead, when you're building the deck, you think about it a little bit. How well can I protect my size 3? If I can't protect my size 3 that well at all, maybe, just maybe I need to play more size 3 so that when he dies the turn after I play them, I also have the gauge available to play a new one. Things about that for size 3 decks, or like open center decks. How many defensive cards do you actually need to be successful for your win condition? Do you have to consider playing impact cards to make sure that you are actually successful in pushing your opponent to death? Like maybe there's cases with some of these open center or rush decks where you get a couple attacks in, but you're just a few short because your opponent did manage to have a shield. Are there impacts available to you that'll either kill them or get you closer to being able to protect yourself or what have you? All things you kind of have to think about. And then some of these like weird combo decks that I like to play, like Stars, for example. A lot of the time, you have to focus so much of the deck into just drawing into your combo pieces that it becomes so difficult to play other cards. And that's the real struggle in all of it, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't. Do you really even have the space to play like your like, I don't know what people call it, the spicy tech cards to make sure that you get there? Or do you play cards that allow you to discard to draw more cards? It becomes pretty hard to do. But like most of the other guys have already said, you got to first figure out what your win condition is. There's, I don't know how many different archetypes now, right, in the game. And there's so much you could do with it. Like for Legend World, since I really like Legend World a lot, there's Asgard. And Asgard has a pretty janky win condition with the new Fenrir Impact Monster and all the discard outlets. So with all the discard outlets, you could actually, with the new Rune Staff clone thing, you can actually get more cards in your hand pretty quickly if you get lucky Iowa Dolls or whatnot. And you could also use Fenrir's skill to drop down the new Jokers so that whenever you restand your Fenrir, you're restanding with 5 critical. So you could potentially push out more than 12 damage in just one turn. Or for Stars, you obviously need to put all the cards you need into a single deck that allows you to get one of your Star or one of your Suns, one of your Astraeuses, a monster on the other side, and your set spell, and then the necessary gauge to play it. So what cards do you have that can do all of those things? Like what's the right ratio? Maybe you have to dial it back on cards that actually cost gauge, maybe play some support spells to ramp it back up. That's the fun part, I guess, about deck building. Obviously we all have, there's people that have channels that give you the layouts for ideas. And this is not to discourage people from being unsuccessful, because a lot of the time successful deck lists come from failures, right? Like you'll look at a new set, you'll get a bunch of cards. And a lot of times I don't like to look at what other people are doing, because I kind of like to just try it out myself. I go to a locals or something, I'll be like, man, my deck is garbage. What did I do wrong here? Like, I'm playing this, I did something horribly wrong. Am I missing a card? And I'm like, I'll look at somebody else's deck, I'm like, where'd you get this card? I'm like, I wish I knew about this yesterday. There's like a monster that like destroys like all of my opponent's stuff for like 1 gauge or some ridiculous nonsense like that. I'm like, how did I miss something like that? And that's the second part of deck building, is you do it first yourself. You actually find cards, like others have already said on this stream. You find cards that work well. You talk to other people. They also have cards that work well. And then you take all those cards and try and put them into a deck. And then you start having more successful decks, like deck profiles or things ready to go. And a lot of things that I like to do on my channel is, I'll play it once, or I'll play it for like one event. It does good, it does bad. I make tweaks, and I put the idea out there. The idea doesn't have to be 100% because like if every deck I made was like top tier, that'd be super happy. But like a lot of times it's mostly just to get the ideas out there because a lot of times I'm going through the motions of my own failures just to get ideas out there. And I like to show people what's worked for me. That's why on my videos I'll talk about things that I've done. But most of the time is to try and get people to talk back, to help me out too, to try and get the ideas out there. So I mean, there's a lot of cool things you can do with decks, and first and foremost, you know, understanding what your win con is, because if you're gonna draw a bunch of cards that don't do anything, then what's the point of drawing all those cards, right? I mean, if you
It feels good.
It does feel good, but like you draw cards that let
The
you draw more
pluses.
cards, and then that's it.
How many cards do you have in hand? 25.
You just played yourself.
See, I lost so many games with like 6 or 7 cards in my hand because none of them were shields. It's like I just need to block one of your attacks and I'll live. Oh, that's when I stopped making decks that just draw.
Yeah, I mean, it can work. I mean, I love drawing. I like with stars, obviously, but like that was like part of the weakness at first was that, you know, there were so many cards that I had for just combo pieces that all of a sudden I had to try and figure out what the heck I was going to do to actually stay alive. And that was like the biggest problem. And then lo and behold, we have this new Impact Astraeus. I'm like, this is everything I wanted to help make it successful, because a lot of the time I was like focusing on just trying to draw more cards. So I was playing the Executioner Sword. That was also a Legend World card, so I do an extra card a turn. I could also use the Executioner Sword to get cards in my drop zone. So cards like Capricorn could actually pick up my combo pieces from the drop zone. And in turn, that meant I had to play way more Gauge Excel. So I used my Gauge as a resource to get cards to my drop zone so that I could pick it up with Starfall Knight or Capricorn to try and get the combo pieces on as fast as possible. So there's a lot of like abstract thinking you can do with cards. You know, other decks that are pretty good, like using the Gauge's resources, like Dragon Knights, for example. Dragon Knights can like ramp their Gauge all the way, pay the Gauge for, like, let's say their Impact Monster, their 4-gauge Impact Monster, get all the cards in the drop zone. You might even have the Gauge afterwards to play the pay 2, draw 3 card, because quite easily you'll have the number of Dragon Knights in the drop zone from the get-go. So, I mean, there's a lot of cool decks that do things. Don't be discouraged from net decking. I think the main thing is, like, at least put some thought into it after you've, like, looked for a deck profile. That way you actually know what you're supposed to do with the decks.
Mm-hmm.
I like the deck profiles a lot, because I'll look at them too to try and get ideas, because obviously someone who spent a lot more time than me working on a deck, because I only like a few niche decks, but it's always nice to have ideas from somewhere.
Okay. Oh, thanks, Zach. That was very informative. Alex, did you want to go next, or you want me to?
Yeah, I'll go next.
Okay.
I spent a lot of time on the Buddy Fight page, YouTube, and the Japanese Twitter, especially the Japanese Twitter, since they get sets like a whole month before we do.
Okay.
Okay, later.
So you spend a lot of time looking at other stuff.
Yeah, like, for example, when Prism Dragons first came out, I spent the whole, like, week, 2 weeks before I even put the whole deck together to where I like it on the Japanese Twitter, getting ideas from them, like tech choices, different things. Like, when I first started, I thought just 4 enhancement would be just the perfect number, wouldn't need to play anything else. And I see the Japanese players playing Star Jack Boost. I'm like, well, why are they playing Star Jack Boost? And I tried out at 2 copies. I'm like, okay, I go enhancement, Gauge draw into a Star Jack Boost, and then I get to Star Jack Boost, Gauge draw into something else. And all of a sudden I've got 2 Gauge and I haven't even played a card in hand. So I'm like, okay, sure. Then I work out ratios. I eventually got it down to a 3-3 split.
Makes sense.
But a lot of the things I take into account for deck building is what I'm going to run into. So since if I'm building for locals, I know what most of my local players are building or what they're playing. So I'm gonna build decks that can stand up to those. Or if I'm building for regionals, since the New Jersey regionals is coming up, I've got my deck lists that I'm working on for regionals and what I expect to see. So say I'm expecting to see a bunch of Prism Dragons, Oni Assassins. Make sure you include a lot of Soul Hate or Penetrate.
Yeah.
Because Onis hate Penetrate, and Prism Dragons, if they're not on a Thura, they're just going to start eating that Penetrate damage real quickly, and that builds up real fast. And they've only got about...
I really think you just made a t-shirt. Soul Hate or Penetrate. I love it. It's a great slogan.
Just
Sorry.
Copyright it before somebody else.
Yeah, you better get that shit on a shirt right away. Justin, get on that.
Copyright it. Yeah, and put it on your channel.
2017 Soul Hate or Penetrate 2017.
You heard it here, boys. All right. So Alex, how much practice do you and Brandon usually do before playing at locals, or do you just play at locals?
We don't just play at locals. We usually spend about 2 to 3 days either at each other's house or on area. Usually on area, since we have a bigger library, and we could start. We start planning for sets way ahead of time. Like we've already started testing for crossing generations, and we have regionals in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But we've already started planning out our decks for post crossing generations.
Okay.
Regionals is 2 weeks away. Holy shit.
Pretty good. Yeah, it's just 2 weeks. But that's 2 weeks for us to be good before that.
That's a big slap in the face.
All three of us, we're all gonna be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Zach, you're going too, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
4. That's my mistake.
Hotel for New Jersey.
Damn it.
Guys,
I was hoping you weren't going.
2 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
He's gonna defend his title.
No, he didn't win there. He won at like what is it?
Well, you won in Atlanta. That's right. You won in Atlanta. Anyway, there was no
Zach,
Atlanta, so
spend anything. Look, bro. I will pay you $2 to stay home.
I'll throw $1.
$2.
Paul, Zach. Paul.
Anybody want to make it 4?
$4.
I already got my plan to beat Justin. I'm going to tell him when I'm going to play, so he'll lose all of his other games.
he just sideboards for you.
Yes.
Dude, every time I do that, every time I change my entire deck just to beat something, I don't even play against it.
So Zach, what you playing at regionals?
Hey, Justin, I'm going to play Stars, so we need to get ready for that.
Oh my god. Stop.
I'll play Stars too. Everyone get ready.
Oh my gosh, I gotta go back now. All right. Alex, if you're done, I guess I'll go. Are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty done. Everybody pretty much hit everything that
Okay. I was making a list while everybody else was going, so I'm gonna start at the top. Me starting deck building, I always build whatever seems fun or whatever I have the most of. Like if I open up packs or boxes or whatever, I just build whatever. Like I was gonna build prisms just because the only secret pack I pulled, like I topped that one local, and then I got a Thor secret pack, so I was gonna build that until somebody bought it from me. So then I was just like, I guess I'm not playing a Thor. And then I was gonna do I'm doing only assassins now because I pulled a Kitabuki on Saturday. So nobody's bought that, so I'm definitely building it. I'm buying all this stuff from Harrison, I think this week. Deck building for me, I always live in the present. I don't worry about like future decks or future support unless that support's gonna come out before regional or important tournament, because it kind of doesn't help me. So, but I do build future decks to tailor towards the future meta, but I only do those online. So I worry about present stuff, like present tense stuff in real life, and build all of my decks tailored towards just being in real life decks or stuff that could be coming out before the tournament. Other than that, I read a lot. Like I read like all cards that release for anything that I'm going to play or anything that other people are going to be playing. I just read everything. So it's like I kind of go through like the databases of the wiki. Well, I used to all the time when I had free time. Now I don't have free time like that anymore. So I'm like, I don't even know what most of the Only Assassins do. So it's like all of the cards that I found, I only know what they do if I played against them. So right now I bought all of the Only Assassins that are out. So I'm gonna have play sets of everything. So I can look at every card and figure out how I want to build my deck, like when I get that in. And then
FYI, Austin has a 30-minute tutorial on how to play Oni Assassins in his channel.
It includes all his spicy texts and super cool.
Yeah, all his one-of gloriness.
And that was going to go to my next point. Contrary to what anybody believe, I do not look at deck lists at all. I don't look at YouTube for deck lists. The only time I look at deck lists of other players is when I'm trying to figure out how to beat another deck. Like if the first time I made top in regionals, when I was going to regionals, for everybody that was supposed to be going to nationals, I looked up all of their deck lists and studied all of them. I built all of their decks and played against them. So it's like, just in case you play that deck or changes in some variation, I have like my deck is equipped just to beat your deck. So with looking at deck lists for stuff that I personally play, usually I don't do that because my play style is always like different than everybody, because I just go brain dead with just attacking people to death. So I just build mine and then I'd study everybody else's decks to try to beat them. Having deck lists on other decks is very important because then you don't know what the meta is if you don't study it. Yes.
Every good player should do that, though. I mean,
yeah,
everybody should familiarize themselves with the matchups and like what possible cards could be in somebody else's deck. But I mean, that's kind of goes hand in hand with, you know, competitive play.
Yeah.
Especially when the worst thing is to lose to the one thing you couldn't calculate because you didn't think of it.
Mm-hmm. That's what brings me to my next point. Test against the meta. I test against the meta as much as possible. If you're building a deck that you want to be good, you have to be able to beat, I would say, at least 60 to 70% of the meta, or at least have a 50-50 matchup against it. You should not be playing any type of deck that you do not have at least a 50-50 matchup against everything but one deck. And then you could just side against that one deck if it is. Or just like, or when I like play Talica, just pray that you don't play against that one deck. Because if I played against Legend World, then I would have lost. I would have lost so hard. And it's like, that's something that Michael Charmack told me too before the tournament. He was like, I can't believe that you're playing Talica. You're not worried about Legend World. I was like, I'm praying that I don't play it. If I don't see it, then I'm fine.
Pray our Jesus.
Yeah, I did. It was only 2 Legend World players. I think it was like Spencer Olivier and then somebody else. And both of them like got knocked out by other players. So I didn't have to worry about anything. The last deck that beat me for, well, that could have beat me for that I lost to in Swiss was Sean Blackman's Iron deck. He beat me. Now, so I was glad once we got to top 4 and somebody else knocked him out. So I didn't have to play him again. After texting against the meta, 4-ofs. My 4-ofs are always absolute needs of any card. So that would be like, for Brave Machines, Hyper Energy, absolute need 4-of. Call Super Machine, absolute need 4-of. Unless you're playing Rod Changers. That deck doesn't need either one of those. And then 3-ofs are usually cards that don't go off right away or that may slow you down. Stuff like if you're going to play Abyss Symphony. Like usually if I do run Abyss Symphony at anything more than 2, it's at 3. You can't run something like that at 4 because you have to life break in order to play it. and in this meta, pray that your opponent doesn't kill you. And it can only be cast once per turn. So it's not like something like Nice One, where it's like Nice One, it's like as soon as the game starts, Nice One, draw 2. And it's like your next turn, you have another Nice One, draw 2. So Nice One would be an example of a 4 of. Then 2 ofs are for me, usually cards that are good at some point in the game, but I can live without, or I can resource, like Jason was saying, get it out of the deck or out of the drop zone. Like Ball Soleil is usually my like a 2-of for me. I always try to do like size 3 some way in the deck at 2-ofs, because it's like with Ball Soleil, I can bring them back with Deedles. Pretty good play that I always use with them is bringing them back from drop zone with Devos, play them over like Balzam. With no gauge, after calling him into battle, my opponent, if they have monsters with moves it to the center, and then I go, boom, Darkness Rune, gauge 2, now kill it. 1-of text, I would say are usually cards that are super difficult, cards that you can only play once, or you only want to play once, like Burn Nova, because it eats up a lot of gauge, and if you're playing a deck that doesn't resource well for gauge, then you only want to run it at 1. With most Omni Lords, you can only run them at 1 unless that's the world that they're actually a part of. So that's 1-of text. Next point was practice. I practice. I practice almost every day, because a lot of players come in here and they want to practice. So it's like part of my job. It's like I have to play. So I play almost every day, and I just play everything. Like right now for Buddy Fight, I probably have about I sold some of them. So I probably have about 15 decks. Some of them meta, some of them not. Some of them rogue decks or whatever. But I just throw anything at anybody. It depends what they want to play. But like practice, I know like Austin specifically, like Austin Summers, he practices a lot. He practices a lot online as well, but I don't like playing online personally. So I don't play on Buddy Fight area unless there's a tournament and I'm playing in it. Otherwise, I hate playing online because I hate playing randoms, because a lot of times they don't know the rules, or they're playing a test deck, so you can't really test your deck against another test deck. Because and that's one thing that like pisses me off about my local players, is that they'll come in and they'll try to tell me some amazing story of how they beat somebody on area and they did so well, and then they get discouraged when the deck doesn't do well in local tournament. I'm like, dude, you probably played against somebody that was playing a test deck first off, or you were playing against somebody that doesn't really know the game. So it's like you got to take wins on area with a grain of salt if you don't know the player. It is like winning on area is not the greatest thing. But for me, that's how I usually deck build. I look at deck lists for anybody that sends me deck lists for me to like look over. Or like if somebody tells me like watch this video, then I watch it. But most of the time I don't even look at them, because if I do get free time or make free time, I'm playing video games. So yeah, that's deck building in a nutshell. Does anybody have any questions or struggle? I don't see any questions online. Do any of the rest of you guys got anything to say before we close out?
Instead of a deck list, can I send you a deck pick?
Oh man, that was good.
Is that cool?
A deck pick that you want to use? Yeah, sure.
I'll use it on you.
If Darkness Dragon World or Hero World is among that, use that.
I don't think he's getting it.
Otherwise,
Yeah, I don't. So for anyone going to the upcoming regional or struggling in their locals, don't be afraid to try ideas that other people haven't tried already. Breaking the game, or even just being original, building your own deck, building your own idea, it helps you get better and build original ideas, and it helps you grow as a deck builder to just try everything, because you'll learn what doesn't work, what can work. Also, play the cards that help you play the game. I can't tell you how many times me and my friend Rob Russo have gone back and forth how Charger is one of the best Dragon Arms ever. Pay gauge, draw a card when it enters the soul from the field of drop.
Yeah, he was using that. I think Sean was using it in the Style of Justice deck that he came in second with this past weekend.
Yeah, you get just one in it.
Yeah, it was so funny. Like when I finished, and he showed me like his whole deck. It was just like he was doing what I said. He wasn't running like hardly any shields.
Well, his shields come from that Aster pack.
Yeah, all the Dragon Arms. That's why I thought it was funny. Like it was just like after we talked about his list with him, it was like one spell that we didn't agree with that he played was the one where like you dump a Dragon Arms from your hand and then you draw two.
Yeah,
Factory? Dragon Arms Factory?
Yeah. Harrison really didn't like that one, but I was just like I didn't like it, but just because it was like a wash. Like if I'm going to play anything to draw, I'd rather just plus or like at least cycle, get a gauge and draw a card.
Well, you play it because the new Jacks, you need to have the Dragon Arm.
Yeah.
Well, there's for future meta, the better is the new draw spell. It's remove the soul, draw two, and I think it says they also gain a life.
Yeah.
That's coming out. But as a Star Dragon World player, my opinion on Dragon Arms Factory is it works for some decks, others it doesn't, because there's also Brave Memory. It's just instead of discarding the Dragon Arms and draw two, it's the gauge you pay out and then draw two with Brave Memory, you know? But there aren't a lot of great draw spells for Star Dragon World.
Yeah.
If you leave here with nothing else, make sure you remember Soul Hate and Penetrate.
2017!
Thank you, Alex.
Anytime.
All right. And then
I'm gonna start my own T-shirt business. Look out for the 2018 T-shirt.
That's going to be the name of the regional champion at New Jersey, Soul Hate and Penetrate 2017.
All right, who's gonna name their deck that shit? Come on, I want to see that on Bushi's site.
We're gonna see it eventually, just because of this stream.
Yeah, my deck name's always shameless because it's youtube.com/Zex every time.
I have not done well with any serious deck name that I made. Like every time I go like Superstar Card Gaming or like Justice League Swag at youtube.com, I scrub so hard. But when I just make them like stupid names.
I told you, man. Well, maybe Zach didn't know because I told the story like last week. But when I named the deck for Jacksonville, you know, I agreed on a name with Khalil before I entered the event. But usually I always name my deck net.deck. And of course, the one time I win with a net.deck, I had to name something else.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, one also interesting deck that I want to point out from this Saturday that I saw, even though he didn't top Russo, he was running the I think it was Proto Barriers in this deck. Is that the one that gauges? Oh my god.
That's the blue shield for Star Dragon 1.
That was the first time I played against a Thor deck. I got to the Gushy Center and I could not hit it all. I think both of those rounds I played him, I only dealt him about 3 or 4 damage, and he went right back up. I was like, this is just, it was so disheartening.
Yeah, he rides that card up his high horse.
Yeah. And it's like the first time like playing against the Thor, I felt like a little boy fighting a grown man. I can't hit you at all.
Card's good though. I'm not gonna lie, it helps the deck out a lot.
Yeah, it does because it was like, and how he plays it is like really smart because he was just like, well, if I don't care if my monster dies, I'm just gonna play another one next turn. I let it die, let you swing at me so I can play the shields that give me gauge, and then I just play another Thor or play something else. I was just like, oh geez.
Rob Russo.
But yeah, that was something that I saw interesting. On top of everybody's super shiny decks, we usually don't have a lot of super shiny decks all together.
New York is just shiny the deck. Well, Grim especially is shiny the deck. We get there.
Yeah, we don't have enough rarity horse here.
Yeah, we have too
Not
many
yet.
by me. We all fight for each other for foils.
Yeah, that's because all of you guys always playing the same shit, like Star Dragon World and Dragon World.
No. All right,
It's
only
like-
me and Rob play Star Dragon World. Cole just jumped on the bandwagon because of prisms, and God forbid that. Dragon World, everyone played Dragon World, and they're all jumping for foil blue shield, so that was a fight in itself between 7 of us.
All right. But I'm gonna close it out here. So I'm gonna thank you all for participating. Thank the viewers. Everybody that has channels, could you do your channel plug now, and then send me your channel so I can attach it to the broadcast. So after it's done, it'll be on the on this YouTube feed. So Zach Zag, Buddy Fight News Corner, and what was yours, Jason?
Super Genji. Super Genji.
Okay, I actually looked for you the other day and I couldn't find you.
Hey Justin, before
I
you do
have
it,
2, the Card Capital and Super Genji, but yeah, Super Genji is where everything's going now.
Okay.
Yes.
What were you saying, Zach?
did you want to talk about like gym leader stuff before you end it?
Oh, crap.
I'm out,
Yeah.
guys.
I worked out. Okay, before we start the broadcast, or
Yeah, that way you tell people, because in New York, I'm gonna be there doing gym leader challenges.
Okay, yeah. In New York, Derek Gray is going to be doing gym leader challenges. He already told me. I'm going to be doing gym leader challenges, and Zach's going to be doing gym leader challenges. I don't know. Alex, are you going to be doing them as well?
I've got my new design from. Depends on if it's going to be here in time. But if it's not, then I might still do them and then just ship them out later.
Okay, yeah, because that's what Michigan did, because he forgot his.
What does your badge look like, Alex? I'm curious.
The new design, well, the old design is just what I've got on my channel art. The new design is I've got the little teacher Tsuku that I've been using for my videos, and it just got him holding a sign that says Buddy Fight News Corner.
Yeah. I think if it's going to be at least 4 of us there, I think we should do like what is it called? Do like tag matches and let the players do tag matches against us.
Yeah, I'll be there on Saturday, so I'll probably come down to the event on Saturday. That way I can actually, do gym matches.
Yeah, I'm going to do gym matches on Saturday as well, too, because I don't know if I'm going to play Vanguard or Buddy Fight. Oh, I mean, no, Vanguard or what's the other thing on that day? Yeah. I mean, Luck and Logic takes so long to play, but I really want to play my Olga deck. But it takes so long to play. And then Vanguard, I could play Spike Brothers.
Good.
That was
Or
fun.
you just sign up, get the stuff, and then leave.
Makes a fair point.
Yeah, I'll probably sign
Promos
up.
and then drop.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I'll probably sign up for Vanguard, play round 1 or 2, and then drop. Because I think they don't give out the bags now until round 2, I believe.
Huh.
All right, yeah. So look out for us on Saturday. If not, message either myself, Alex, Zach, or Derek Gray on Facebook, and try to challenge us. But we'll probably be down with our badges. Remember, at the end of the summer, whoever has the most badges, I'm going to be sending packs to you guys of Buddy Fight in the mail. So it's going to be whatever set is actually out at the time. I don't know, because I ordered like 16 boxes of like every set from now until I think after Crossing Generations.
So after
Yeah, so I'm gonna have a ton of Friday. But think that's about it. Good night, folks.
see you guys later.
That's all, folks.
Have a good one.